Today we will discuss one of the very important aspects of the research, that is how to write a scientific research papers. Uh, so before I move towards the title and abstract and then even the other constituents or the parts of the research paper is. So let me discuss and focus more on the basic structure or the body of the research paper, and let's try to understand that basic structure. So that may include the introduction. So basically, that introduction has the three main parts. So the first is that we have to introduce the research problem and its significance. So basically, when we talked about the, res- the that how to introduce the research problem is that we have to actually emphasize and highlight its applications and its importance. So one of the that is the very key and important aspects which we have to discuss in the introduction and in a very first part. And the second thing is that we have to present the background and the literature and relevant literatures. And when we talked about the background, so in that context, when we are more focusing on the science or scientific paper is that we have to actually understand to explain the basic working principle or the mechanism that is involved in that particular research area, right? On which we are actually supposed to write that, right? And then, with reference to that, we have to cite the relevant literature that what kind of the principle or the hypothesis are the principle that actually involves in that research area. And the third and the most important part of the introduction would be that we have to state and we have to explain what is the basic purpose of this particular research paper is that we have to highlight its objective and then whatever the hypothesis which we used for its scientific exploration that we have to spell out over here in the very last section. And the next part of the research paper would be that materials and method, and that materials and methods may include materials, synthesis procedures, instrument, and characterization techniques. We have to actually explain a very brief about each and every things that is involved. That may also include some of the precursors or the chemicals, or when we are going for any experiment, whatever is there that should be explained over there. But another very important thing that while explaining all these materials and method and synthesis procedure, we have to have ensure that the reproducibility. That means that whatever the protocols which we are supposed to follow or which we are following, that we should keep it in our mind that that should be reproducible by any other researcher as and when needed. And then, if that work is not experimental, but that is based on the computational side, so of course that we have to actually mentions or to highlight the importance or some of the key points related to the softwares and the tools which we may use for this research article, and that may include some of the DFT analysis, that could include console, origin, or other relevant software. And the third and the most important part of the research paper is the research. Uh, Present your findings using the figure, table, and graph. And one of the very important thing which I just want to reiterate and even highlight over here, that we have to properly use the captions for the particular figures and even for table and the graph. And of course, even at later stage, I will explain it that even when we are using some of the figures, like for example, SEM images or even we are using some of the EDX analysis, or even in XPS. Or so we have to be very clear. I mean, caption should explain well whatever is being presented in that particular figure, and even the table must have some title, and that should be properly numbered, and even the graph that should be even highlighted. Highlight should also be there in that particular graph, because that is the good thing to actually highlight, or that is the good thing to present actually. Another very important thing while we are presenting the result, that we have to be objective. Objective means that whatever we observe or measure, that should be reported. We should not include our own opinion, even mean that should not be the subjective, but that should be purely evidence based. That we call the results, and those results must be accompanied by the fourth section, which I'm just going to explain, that is the discussion, that we have to interpret the results, that why did you get these results and what do they mean. So as long as we can actually we can compare the results with the literature, or if you are good enough to have to find something better, something novel or unexpected in your results, that's the good thing to move on, and even discuss the possible mechanism of the results which you are getting over there, because over here in developing countries we normally actually lacks this part of the research paper, that we are not good enough, that that we don't explain much more about the mechanism or the reason or the phenomenon, what is being used behind that results. And last things in the discussion, that is we have to mention that the limitations and the future work, because when I'm talking about the future work, so while we are getting the results, and while we are making the discussions, that we should say, for example, with reference to your lab constraint or technical constraint, maybe your results is, for example, you are using a camera, or you are using any device, mean optical device, and that would have the least count or minimum resolution which it can actually evaluate or follow. Beyond that you cannot actually get the best result out of that. So you should spell out that this is the limitation, or with reference to our lab requirement. So if that limitation would be removed, so of course the result could be in a much more better way, or some good results that you can get from there, right? So that should be actually spelled out very clearly. The next and last part of the basic structure of the research paper is conclusions. In conclusions, we actually focuses on the five main points. So the first one is that let's summarize the key findings, recap the main results or insights gained from the study, whatever has been conducted for this particular research paper. And then we have to address the research questions or hypothesis, that we have to very clearly state that whether the research questions was answered or the hypothesis was supported or not. And the third and the most important is that highlight the significance, explain the importance or implications of the findings, that we have to be very clear, that we have to very clearly state that what are the possible applications or applications of that particular resources. And then we have to very clearly mention the limitations, as I said before, that sometimes these limitations, that sometimes they are very useful for understanding any particular research area. And then at the end we have to suggest the future work, recommend the direction for the further research based on the current findings, so that the other researcher can follow your research to carry on, or even you should actually decide that or conclude that what could be possible in the future if this research can be extended. That's the good thing, or the way forward should be included that in that basic structure of the research paper. Once we complete this basic structure, then we have to write the abstract. Of course, we normally write at the end, but of course it is placed at the first. What the abstract should be? Abstract must have the three main things: what you have done, mean objectives, and what is the methodology, what are your results, and then what are your conclusions on the basis of conclusions, that is what is the interpretation of that results is. That last part is the most important, which I consider that should be in any research paper, because in some of the most of the scenarios that research papers contains lots of results, but the interpretations sometimes they lacks. So this should be focused and highlighted. We have to be very concise. Of course, it should not be more than 300 words. So ideally, it should be from 150 to 250 words. Includes the key data. For example, if we are writing the paper on degradations of a particular model polluted, of course, that percentage degradation or the band gap of that catalyst or photocatalyst which we are using, or even if we are actually performing some of the antimicrobial activity or antifungal activity, that should be actually spelled out as a key data that should be included in that abstract. Finding or results should be included in them. Another very important point for writing a research paper is the title. Title should reflect the essence of the whole study, whatever we are conducting. We have to be very compact, specific, and attention grabbing, because the some of the titles they are very lengthy, so that doesn't actually impact a lot. So we have to be very clear and concise. And the fourth point is that we have to use the few keywords. That keywords should include 4 to 6 keywords for indexing. For example, if we are using SNO2 or even ZNO or WO3 photocatalyst, that should be actually spelled out as a keywords. And if we are actually we are not using the dopant, but we have some nanocomposites, so let's write down that it is nanocomposite. And if we are performing some activity or application with reference to the say wastewater treatment, that should be included as a keyword. That should be from 4 to 6 words. And the next very important point is that, of course, we use the figures and the table as I said in the results. But I just want to actually reiterate some of the parts and highlights that the figure must have the high quality and properly labeled, and even when we're using the table, that should be properly I mean, for example, if you are using the table in literature review, that key finding must be supported with proper reference in that table. So as long as you actually spend a lot more effort while using that high quality figures and the table, that would be the success of that research paper would be, and that would be the guarantee that it could be published in a very good research journal. Use the caption that describes what's shown. That is very important. And another very important tips while I'm discussing this: refer that particular figure and the table in the text. That is most of the students actually that actually miss this. that they actually use that figure number, table number, but they don't call that figure or table number in the text. So don't forget to call that into the text. And then, of course, we use the references, use consistent format, mean whatever the format, as I have already discussed in another session, that we could use APS style, IEEE, ACS, whatever, but that whatever the style which you are using for the references, that should be consistent, mean throughout the research paper, that should be consistent, same style. Cite the recent and relevant work, especially for good scientific research paper. That reference should be from Q1 journal. That's the good thing too. And while you are writing the scientific research paper, another good tip is that use the formal, clear, and concise language. Another very good tip is that avoid personal pronouns I or we, unless the journal allows, or even sometimes that is unavoidable. But try to avoid that. Use passive voice or the third person active. For example, the sample was he did blah blah blah. So in that context, you can write the sentence. Instead, you used I and we. So avoid that using these personal pronouns. Another very important rules are the tips which I share over here with reference to the language. Sometimes some of the words, try to avoid those results. For example, when we are using due to the fact that, or because, so it means that we are not sure about that. So it means that we have to be very confident, that we have to have prefer some strong words like this results are indicates or demonstrate or enhance. So that would actually add the value of your research paper. And another very important thing is define abbreviation on the first use. Like for example, if we are using scanning electron microscope, so at first time write the complete word scanning electron microscope in bracket SEM, and next time whenever you are using anything with reference to the SEM, now you can use the word SEM. No need to write scanning electron microscopes. But at the first place, that should have the complete word in bracket its abbreviation, and then use it onward. Another very important point that the research paper must contain that acknowledgement. Sometimes we forget that, but during that research work, from wherever you have got the help or the fruitful discussion, let's try to incorporate that facilitations. At the end, we have to add conflict of interest sections, that the author declares that no conflict of interest that involves between the authors, between the institutes involved in that research areas or research findings or research projects. We have to be very clear, and clear statement should also be included, that helps, right? And at the end, that we have to use another subsection sometimes that's very useful or informative, that could be, that is add the supplementary information. Mean sometimes you can add the raw data, sometimes you can add the library, or sometimes just like the appendix which you used in the thesis work. So just like that, you can include that everything related to that research paper in the form of the supplementary information. And that's the good thing to to move on for any good research paper is. Thanks for watching, and then let me acknowledge all those who have facilitated in this presentation. So especially I'm thankful to Mr. Muhammad Aftab